So, 2026 gives us three Friday the 13ths. Not the lonely single one we suffered through in 2025, a statistical tragedy that occurs only once every 4 centuries. Yes, we survived it, barely. Well, you and I, probably, will never have to go through another year with only one Friday the 13th. Yay, us. But this year, we feast. 3 Fridays, 3 13ths, 3 tiny tales. At least in the Gregorian calendar, created by Pope Gregory the 13th. Huh. Coincidence? What? Huh? What? Oh, hey, you're right. Huh. Hey, if you take the 26 in 2026 and divide by the 2, you get 13. Well, that cinches it. No coincidences here. Well, in honor of our 3 Friday the 13th this year, we will have 3 tiny tales starting this week. Then one on March 13th with a leprechaun theme, being as it will be right before St. Pat's Day. And then one on November 13th. Perhaps Arlo will have some misadventure on that one. Okay, on to tonight's story, which is The Clock of 13 Tolls. In the dusty, cobwebbed corner of the Blackwood estate sat a timepiece that belonged to no known era. It was a tall, skeletal thing of ebony wood, its pendulum swinging with the heavy, rhythmic thrum of a heartbeat. The villagers spoke in hushed tones of the Paraskeva Decatriophile, old Silas Blackwood, who did not fear the 13th day of the month, but hungered for it. For he claimed that on a Friday the 13th, the veil between then and now grew as thin as a raven's wing, and tonight the wind howled through the eaves like a lost soul seeking a key. Silas sat before the clock, his eyes fixed on the Roman numerals. As the minute hand crept toward midnight, a heavy silence fell, a silence so absolute it felt like velvet against the skin. Tick, tock, tick, tock. And then the clock began to strike. 1, 2, 3. The sound was not metallic, but like the deep chime of a submerged bell. 10, 11, 12. Silas held his breath. The candles bent inward as if listening. The world seemed to tilt. And then it came. 13. With that final, impossible toll, the shadows in the room began to stir. They did not rise to harm, but to dance. Figures of ink and mist, the ghosts of stories never finished and loves never spoken, swirled in the candlelight. A single black feather drifted from the ceiling, though no bird was in sight. Silas smiled, his heart finally in sync with the pendulum. For on the 13th hour of the 13th day, he was no longer alone in the dark. He was the guest of honor at a gala of ghosts. And every year thereafter, when the calendar trembled toward 13, the clock kept perfect time and perfect invitations. Ooh. Well, happy Friday the 13th, everyone. Thank you for listening and for joining us for our Friday the 13th Tiny Tale. Be sure to join us tomorrow on Valentine's Day for Vignettes from the Vintage Heart, right here on StoryLink Radio at 1 p.m. Pacific Time. You can watch the trailer right now and click that bell so you don't forget. What? What do you mean it's too short? It's supposed to be short. It's a tiny tale. That's literally the contract. I know that. Well, whatever. Fine. I'll tell you what. Let's just do another tinier tale right now. Huh? How about making it up right now, okay? Hey, how about Julian and Alara and an attic in an old mansion high on a cliff and a tomb? Hey, how's that sound? And a storm too? Who's writing this stuff? Me or you? Okay, here we go. The Valentine in the attic. For 50 years, the mansion at the cliff's edge had been a tomb for romance that vanished into the spray of the sea. The locals still spoke of the great gale of 1596, a storm so sudden and localized it felt like less like nature and more like a sentence. It was said that Julian had waited for Alara on the eve of St. Valentine, a Friday the 13th, so black that the stars themselves seemed to have drowned. He had stood at the highest attic window, a hand-painted card and a ring tucked into his vest, watching for a carriage that the sea mist had already swallowed. Every February 14th since, a soft violet light would shimmer from that same window, a corpse candle, the old folks called it, an omen of those who had died but refused to depart. Young Thomas, the new caretaker, climbed the spiraling stairs this year. The air grew thinner, tasting of salt and ancient iron. The attic was a graveyard of memories, trunks of moth-eaten silk, and broken navigation tools. But the centerpiece was a small, velvet-lined jewelry box sitting on a desk of rotted oak. Beside it lay the Valentine. Its edges were trimmed in lace, the ink as wet and dark as a fresh wound. Love is not a guest that leaves when the house grows cold, it read. As Thomas reached for the card, the wind outside began to howl with the exact rhythmic cadence of that 1596 gale. The room didn't just warm, it throbbed, the scent of crushed roses rising through the floorboards, masking the smell of the sea. Then came the sound of the heavy gold ring dropping into the velvet box echoed in the silence. Thomas looked down. The box, which had been empty seconds before, now held a band of silver-flecked gold. And beside him, two shadows stretched across the attic floor. They weren't separate, but joined at the hand, cast by a light that had no physical source. The storm outside wasn't trying to break in. It was a barrier. The attic wasn't just a room. It was the eye of that 1596 storm, a frozen pocket of stillness where Friday the 13th never ended. And the eve of St. Valentine was a permanent, glowing sanctuary that kept the world away while the two shadows shared their eternal candlelit dance. Thomas realized then that the house had not kept a tragedy. It had kept a promise made on an unlucky night, waiting for someone to finally witness that the storm had lost. He backed away and turned the heavy iron key. Behind the wood, the violet light pulsed one last time, settling into the steady glow of a secret kept safe. Some houses keep memories. This one kept its promise. Well, thank you for spending this lucky and rather lovely evening with us. And if you find yourself wondering what other stories live in forgotten attics, tomorrow, Valentine's Day, at 1 o'clock Pacific, I happen to know a certain curator who keeps a rather large one. Join us tomorrow for Vignettes from the Vintage Heart, live at 1 p.m. Pacific Time, right here on Story Link Radio. The trailer awaits, and the bell remembers who clicks it. Happy Friday the 13th, everyone.